I'm Andrew Phillips. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to insulate the exterior walls in your house. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I mean by the exterior walls is on the outside of this here is the outside of the house. We're actually up here on my third floor, which I'm refinishing. It has like a cathedral type ceiling up here. I guess you could also call it like an attic space because it is up here at the top of the house. But these are the exterior walls. We have one all the way down at that end and one on this end. So this is exposed to the elements. This isn't in between rooms. So that's what I mean by exterior walls. In this video, I'm going to show you what kind of insulation to use, the equipment that you're going to need to do it, which is not much, and then if there's any prep work that has to go into it, working around electric and things like that. So let's head over and I'm going to show you what's going to be needed for this video and we'll get started. These are the items that you're going to need. First of all, you are going to need your insulation here. We have a pack here of R23. Now this is by Rockwool. This one is specifically like for thermal exterior walls. This is what I'm going to be using. This is 16-inch on center. This is also for 2x6 spaces. If you have a 2x4, then you need to make sure you check that. That way you're not dealing with insulation that is too thick. Next, you are going to need some kind of either a respirator or a face mask. You don't want to be inhaling those fiberglass particles. You will need some eye protection. Highly recommended that you use gloves. Don't know if you're going to need a staple gun, but it is good to have it on hand. Sometimes when you're putting in the insulation, it can start to fall away. You might want to staple it in place. Sometimes it fits perfect, so you may not need it. And then obviously I have long sleeve clothing here. You don't want your skin exposed to this, but this is all that we're going to be using to do this. Now, what I like about this particular bat here by Rockwool, there's other brands you can get different R values that you can use also for your exterior walls, but this one here, as it says right here, thermal home insulation is for exterior walls, basements, crawl spaces. This is fire resistant, water repellent, easy to fit. Also has a very good R value, the R23. You don't want to go too thin on your exterior walls. On your interior walls, that's different. I would say stick between like an R15 and an R23 on your exterior walls for good insulation on that. This one here is for 2x6s, as we already talked about. If your spacing is not 2x6, then you want to make sure that you get the proper one. They also make it for a 2x4. But this particular pack here comes with 8 bats inside of it. So you want to make sure that you measure accordingly on how much you're going to need before you start your project. We're going to cut this open so that way we can access all the bat that's in here. Now this is our insulation bat right here. You can see it doesn't have that paper barrier, which is known as faced. When you're going to buy your insulation, you want to look at the markings on the container. It'll say faced or unfaced. Faced means that it has the paper barrier as shown here. For this particular one, I'm not using that because I wanted this R23 exterior wall thermal. So this one, we will not be using the staple gun because there's nothing to staple onto. Now, behind me, you'll see the baffle right here, which is this ventilation piece right here that goes up the wall. That right here is for a cathedral or vaulted ceiling if you want to finish that. I'll have some video links down in the bottom in the description where I show how to install that, how to also install insulation on a cathedral ceiling if you're going to be finishing that. So let's take this now, head over here to the wall, and I'll show you the application, and we'll also work around some of the electric. We're going to be starting here in this corner, and you can see this is obviously an odd shape. It's on an angle, it's smaller. We're going to be cutting the insulation right on point. You don't want to just cut it more or less and jam it all in there because then you're messing with the R value of it. So we want to cut it so that it's nice and straight, fits right in. I'm going to cut that piece, and then we'll be back to start fitting it in place. Now what I did is I measured that angle. So we were at a 17-inch on the low end, 25 on the higher end. So I'm going to just take a blade. We're going to mark that out and we're going to cut it. I forgot to mention at the beginning, but it's nice to have a little cutting tool on hand in case you need to do this. So we're going to mark this out. So we're at 25 inches. So right here. And then 17 on this end, which is here. So we're just going to come across like this. And this stuff is easy to cut. And the good thing is we have this angle, so we could probably use it on the next one. There we go. Let's head over there and put it in. All right, so we're going to bring this in. Nice fit. I'm going to slide it in here. We're going to put it in nice and straight. It's a little bit of a tight fit here, so I can't get the camera in. But I'm going to put this in, and then we'll be back to take a look at it. Let's take a look. You can see how it's all nice and angled in there, nice fit. It's not crunched in there. It's sealing all the corners. That's how you want it to look. Pull back a little bit here. You can see that. Very nice. Got to do that little corner down there. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to cut a small little piece to fit in there as well. And then we'll be ready to move on here to these other parts right in here. We had a little gap up here in the corner where it went in there. So I had some extra little piece there that when I was cutting it broke off. Just tucked it up in there. You don't want any gaps. So now it's nice and sealed up in that far corner. Finished doing that far corner back there. So that's all completely done. And then we have this side here done as well. All right, now that the hardest part is done, which is that tight corner back there, I'm going to move along and start doing the rest of this. I'm not going to show it all because we already showed the process. You're pretty much going to measure anything. If it's an angle or needs to be cut shorter, cut it accordingly. You don't want to be jamming it in there. You want it to be a nice fit so that the R value doesn't get jeopardized. If you've got any little gaps in there, you want to fill those in as well. So I'm going to move along, keep coming here, and then we'll be back when we get to the electric part, and I'll show you how to insulate around the electric. Here's a top view. You can see how the insulation is in there. You don't want it all crunched up in there. It's fitting nice and perfect in between these beams right here. That's why you want to make sure that when you get it, you get the 2x4 or 2x6, because as I mentioned already, I have 2x6s. Look how nice and it's just perfect. It's not squashed up in there. And if you've got to blend pieces, like I had to blend right there, see how it's, you can't even really see the seam. You want it nice and snug, but not squashed up. But you want it nice and tight so no air is going to be coming through there. There you go. You want to make sure you're filling all gaps nice and solid. All right, so we're now ready to move on to the electric piece here. So I'm going to drop the camera down to that level. We're going to get a piece, and I'm going to show you how to insulate around the electric. So what we have here, as you can see, is electric right here going through the wall. You obviously need to insulate it because you don't want to not insulate it, but you want to do it properly because you don't want to be winding up with improper insulation where cold's coming through. You don't want to be creating a fire or anything like that. If you're using the insulation that has the paper vapor barrier, what I recommend is removing paper probably right in that area there, so that way it's just the insulation near the electric as shown here. That's just my personal preference because although the insulation is fire retardant, paper is not, so I just like to remove that and give about a 3 or 4 inch on each side of the electric of no paper. In this case here, this doesn't have the vapor barrier, so this is going to be going in like that. What you don't want to do is just press it over it because then you're going to have this dead space behind it. where there's still, where it's not insulated. So what I'm going to do, we're going to see right about here, this is our line. Let me get my knife. So we have it right about here. We're going to just split the insulation right down this piece here, pull it apart, and then we're going to open it up. So that way it's going to kind of go like this and slide over it so you have insulation on both sides of it. So let's open this up here. Okay. Perfect. So what we'll do is we're going to slide it down, but opening it up, and I'm going to get the camera down here lower so you can see what I'm doing. I open this, you can see there's our electric. So we're going to tuck, let's bring this up a little bit more. We're going to tuck behind it, as you can see here, bringing it down like this, all the way down, or, there we go. So now, as we come down, you can see the electric is in here. You have insulation in back of it, and then it'll be on front of it when we close it. Pull that down. If you're going to be insulating around a plug like a receptacle here, you have all the electric coming in here. You don't want to just stuff it in like this and have it go back and be gapped. So what I would recommend is splitting it as well through here. You would tuck it in behind here, as we saw with going down on the regular wires, but you want to make sure that you also put something behind here if needed. That way you're not getting any cold air coming through. If you're using any bat that has the paper vapor barrier, I would cut about a 3-inch around, so that way you don't have paper right up against that. But what you would do is you would split this, tuck it behind these wires as we saw when we were doing the other wires, pull that down. Let me get a close-up so you can see what I'm going to do next. So we're going to pull this down. Bring it down. You want it nice and tight behind the receptacle. You don't want air coming through. And if it's not going to be tight, then you can always stuff a little bit back there, as shown here. And just take something like this and just kind of make it nice and tight so that there's no air coming through at all. And then as you bring the front in, then we'll just shape it around here. Put it here so we can get a measurement. Now, obviously, you would be going all the way down. I'm just showing you here for this little piece. But you would just cut a little bit right here. Cut right here. Obviously, you don't want to be cutting wires, but then you could just pull this piece out. It gives a nice seal all around here. And if you need a little bit extra, right here, it looks like a little bit came out. Just put a little bit in like that. And that way it's sealed. And obviously, once you would put your drywall in, you would be taking this off anyway, and then that would go on top. But that's how you want it, is nice and sealed. Let me pull the camera back so you can see how it looks. And it's all nice and flush right here. You don't want it all crimped up. You don't want it crimped up around there. And obviously, if this was going down to the floor, then you would just cut that section out as we showed and make a nice tight seal around that. that wraps up this video on how to insulate exterior walls. As we saw, you want to make sure that you get the right insulation. I prefer the one that's the thermal, but you can get whatever you need. If you're in a climate that requires more of the vapor barrier, whether you want to get the one that's faced, or if not, you want to put the plastic over it to seal that. And then as we saw, also going around the electric, you don't want to leave gaps around there so air comes through. As I mentioned already, I like removing any of the paper if you are using the faced type around the electric. That way there's no paper within 3 to 4 inches on each side of that. But that wraps up this video. I hope that this was informative for you, helped you out with any projects that you're working on. As mentioned already, I'll have links down in the description of other videos I've done with installing baffle and ceiling insulation in a cathedral or attic ceiling. But send me any questions and comments. I would love to hear from you. As always, I appreciate all the support. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel. I'll see you next time.